We are live. Welcome to my thoughts on Arrow Season 1, Episode 3, Lone Gunmen. This episode is rated TV 14, so will this video be? There will be spoilers for these 3 episodes. And yeah, this was another episode I absolutely loved. Let's see. So, I felt like they did a really clever thing by starting the episode with, so in the first episode, it more or less goes off without a hitch, basically saying, the Arrow's crusade, like ultimately the guy doesn't go through, he doesn't transfer the money as promised, but Arrow doesn't have a particularly difficult time taking out his guards and such, which isn't, this is not a criticism. I'm saying that first episode set up, this is his crusade, and he is incredible at what he does, so, he's going to have at least some success at it. And then, episode 2, there's the thing about, well, the guy's not alone, now there's, what did they say? Chinese triad, I want to say, involved. And then in this one, it's not that the guy he was, trying to, influence to right his wrongs. It's not that guy was working with someone. It's that he's killed right in front of Arrow, and now yeah. And it's freaking Deadshot, and, he's continuing to be, now Arrow has to stop him, rather than continue, continue the crusade. Holy crap. So, right, so I wanted to note, again, it's possible this is just a thing from my Blu-rays, and originally when it aired, it was different. But yeah, episode 2 started with, voiceover of him explaining the basic, it's like the A-Team, briefly explaining the basic setup so that you can jump into an episode without having watched all the other stuff. And this one did essentially the same thing, but the visuals and some of the wording was different, which I quite appreciate. It works very well as that, it leads into, you have the thing about, he says, oh, this guy's one of the worst. He is a cancer, but you can fight cancer with a surgeon and the right instrument. Love that. Awesome. So I forget his name, and I don't think he deserves one, so let's call him Mr. Poole. Mr. Poole purposefully made ineffective smoke alarms so people died in fires, one of the worst ways to die. And, when we first meet him, he's like smiling, he's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna be held responsible for all those people I got killed, so I'm feeling pretty good. And just, oh my god, I cannot wait for Arrow to, I'm sitting there watching, I'm thinking, I cannot wait for Arrow to get to this guy, just like, yeah, I mean, they don't call it comic book villainy for nothing. Like, he's not wearing a suit, he doesn't have superpowers, but this is a comic book villain. I absolutely love it. Just, yeah, because, like, sadly there are people like that in the real world, and sometimes it can be nice to imagine, like, obviously, again, I'm against violence in the real world, but it can be very cathartic to see this sort of thing. But yeah, and he starts with the spiel, and at first it does look like, oh, this is just how they, this is how they start episodes now, because the second episode also started with him, managing to get to one of the guys, but then we see the POV from a sniper scope. And, Mr. Poole is shot, lands in the pool, and Deadshot also wounds Arrow. And, we find out not very long after there's poison in those bullets. So, yeah, even just a wound like that is enough to just, holy crap. Okay, so I guess I'll briefly talk about, really effective use of flashback, yet again. He wakes up, and it's like, who are you? And, I think I'm going to wait for someone to pronounce it before I say it, because, yeah, it was there in the subtitles, but I have no idea how you pronounce that, and I really don't want to get it wrong. So, yeah. He responds, I'm the reason you use a bow and arrow and wear green. And, yeah, we find out not long after, they're not alone on that island, you know? I guess it's just a matter of time before we meet, you know, Jack, John, Sawyer, and the others. But the yeah, and you know the thing about you why did you shoot me with an arrow to save you? Right, of course, yeah, that's uh. By the end of this episode, I'm not gonna claim I fully understand what that. I guess it was easier than like it was the easiest way to knock him out so that he could move him. No, okay, you know what? That works. That works. I was about to say it's fine that we don't learn by the end of the episode. We can find out in upcoming, but no, that's it. And then yeah, he runs off, ends up, he was caught in a net, and yeah, he the guy cuts him down, and he doesn't say come back with me. He's just like, dude, if you don't want my help, I mean, I guess you can deal with them then. Yeah, real intense when he pulls out the arrow, which also like, yeah, and just like Oliver was lying there thinking, shooting me in the torso with an arrow is about the most painful thing you could do to me, and then fair enough. There's one other thing. And let's see. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to finding out. What's the deal with I mean, I can't help but wonder if they have some sort of they're running some sort of thing on that island, because those were armed men. Like those were professionals. Yeah, really looking forward to it. This show does a really good job. Like you're gradually like, sprinkling in these little mysteries and upcoming plot threads. I think that might be it for the flashbacks. But yeah, and the thing about how he has he has this antidote, I guess it is, ready, which I appreciate. He's a very capable person. There's a lot of stuff where he's able to maneuver situations extremely efficiently, but he does still run into problems every so often. He was extremely lucky on the rooftop that it was Mr. Poole that Deadshot was after, and he just kind of got in the way. If Deadshot had been trying to full on for sure kill him, that would have been it. So it's not nothing. I think that does pretty well. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can do some chronological stuff. So yeah, yeah. He starts researching, and is that thing of like you gotta be careful with having a calling card, because yeah, okay, so 7.62 millimeter dipped in curare. Yeah, that's his signature basically, which like. Yeah, and I'm sure for most people it's like, oh, it's Deadshot. I'm gonna call my lawyer and update my will. But that's not how Ollie rolls. And I think that pretty well brings us to the so he comes home, and his sister yeah. So before she was drunk and disorderly, and now she's breaking and entering. Thea, at this rate, you're gonna face arrow. And yeah, I thought it worked this thing of they struggle to like he's trying to be her older brother, and she points out, what was it, you're not dad and you're barely my brother, which yeah. And yeah, this thing of yeah, mom, yeah, if Ali points out, you gave me too much, you leeway, and you're doing it with her as well. And we learned later in the episode, yeah, you know, Robert was the one who did a really good job raising her, and yeah, that is a thing that actually happens in the real world. Sometimes it is one of the parents that's especially good, and then if that parent is, you know, gone for an extended period of time, the kid might act out. You know, like it's like, you know, Ollie has it exactly right. She is testing their mom. You know, she's trying to find a boundary, and she's trying to get her mom to really do something, you know, have some reaction so that she feels like this, you know, because right now it kind of feels to her, and obviously that's not the case, but it feels to her like mom just doesn't care, you know, like just, and there aren't really consequences to her actions, so there isn't that deterring her either. And I also like the, you know, she immediately realizes, oh, this was Ollie, wasn't it? It was his idea that I'm supposed to be grounded. And yeah, once, you know, mom opens up and talk, you know, the thing about, you know, dad convinced you it was a tiger, you know, which genuinely a clever, yeah, like a kid's gonna understand that if they believe that, you know, obvious, you know, that wasn't the case. They didn't find a tiger. It was most likely a lion. But yeah, a mean stray cat, you cannot adopt one of those. You know, it sucks that it's like a stray, but yeah, that's not, you know, and that is also a good, you know, this thing of like, she does have a good heart. She's just acting out, you know. Um, and yeah, you know, she says you never talk about dad. You know that for the last 5 years, or for you haven't mentioned him in years. You know, and yeah, you know, later in the episode, she you know, her mom made, you know, a gesture of talking about dad, and now later in the episode, Thea makes a gesture of showing up to the auction, which they also do a good job of, like, you know, once Oliver sees them, it's like, oh no, that might, you know, any one of them could be the target. So it's just, yeah, I quite appreciate when a story is willing to say, you know, is that good? Yes, but, and I think that does bring us to, right, the yeah, Dig is, you know, so how was your night? You mean after I said I needed the bathroom and then didn't show up for the rest, you know, just, yeah. I think, yeah. I quite liked. Um, oh, right. No, yeah, yeah. I'll talk some more chronologically. I'll get that. Anyway, sure, yes. Yeah, the thing about, you know, dad detective seeing, you know, there's a second shooter. We have to take, you know, and the other cops, you know, they're doing the cop trope of like, you know, only, you know, he's the right man for the job, but his methods are unconventional. You know, he's a damn fine cop, but he doesn't follow the rules, kind of thing. And yeah, it is, you know, like the others want to try to, you know, pin it on Arrow. I loved the line that of Dad Detective of, or no, yeah, was it? I think it was that detective who said, you know, oh, so he's using guns now. I guess he realized there's more efficient ways to kill people than using arrows, because, you know, yeah, 3 episodes in, they had to get to it soon because it was a thing. You know, people were joking, oh, so can't they do? You know, I remember when Avengers came out and everyone was bagging on or, yeah, making fun of Hawkeye because, you know, why doesn't he have a gun? You know, even Black Widow has guns. You know, and I do think the MCU did a pretty good job using trick arrows to, you know, explain it. And so far it seems like here the explanation is indeed the guy who saved him. Um, yeah, I think that does bring us to, so the yeah, Oliver goes to the bad neighborhood, and, you know, he and Tommy talk about, you know, opening a club, which, you know, yeah, the basement of it is going to be his lair, and it'll explain what Oliver Queen is doing in with his evenings and such. Very clever. I think that does right, and they they say, oh, if it belongs to Oliver Queen, should it be called Queens? And Tommy makes a joke about, I don't think girls are gonna show up if you call it Queens. And yeah, again, they gotta make the joke. When they originally named him in the comics, yeah, the term Queen didn't have that connotation. I don't love that they're making a joke like that, but I guess it is. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Tommy making the joke. He's made other jokes that are clearly we're not supposed to like him. He says to Dinah, or Lauren, he wants to be better, and that is also a wonderful thing. That's so many women are able to inspire us men to be better. And I'm not saying that is like their responsibility. I'm just noting that is something that happens. Yeah. Including to myself. Let's see. I think that does bring us to, yeah. I really like. Again, this thing of, actually no, yeah. I think I did already mention. Dig is being treated like just one of the guys. He straight up asks him, what do you think? And Dig is like, I mean, I'm the bodyguard. I'm not here to offer commentary. And Oliver says, no, really, I want to hear what you think. And we have the thing about gentrification, which, yeah, we know that is actually harmful to the people living in those areas because they end up not being able to afford things. Yeah, I think that does right. I love the parkour on this show. The bit where he goes, he's going for the bullet, and the way he climbs just so badass. And like, they had the actor actually do like, I mean, possibly not all of it, but at least some of it. You see his face, like really, really nicely done. I mean, I guess they hired someone that they knew could actually do at least some of this stuff for real, and yeah, it's great when they do. Let's see, and yeah, he like climbs up to the top, and the little canister of sunglasses is shot down, and he's like, okay, so what is my mission if I choose to accept it? And I think that does, yeah. So okay, Deadshot. I love that they actually had, yeah, holy crap. Okay, so brief. It's I'm gonna have to briefly talk about when the first Suicide Squad movie came out. I have to admit at the time I really wasn't familiar with the comics, the Suicide Squad comics specifically. I had read other New 52, but yeah, the I decided was gonna read a bunch of. I read every single New 52 Suicide Squad comic that I could get my hands on, and yeah, Deadshot was one of my favorites. And yeah, I thought they did a really good job in this episode. Like, there's a little bit, ultimately, like they give him a thing to put over his eye. Instead of having, I forget, I think, is it like maybe cybernetic? It's like Thief 2, But yeah, I appreciate them just going with the. Okay, I'm gonna try not to like spoil for myself, but I can't help but wonder. I guess there's room for him to get the eye, maybe, because he was shot in the eye through. Maybe that is okay. That would be incredibly cool. I'm gonna be okay if they don't do it, but that I just can't help but wonder. Anyway, yeah, the wrist mounted gun, and if I recall, the dipping, the poison dipping is from the comics as well. And yeah, it was so great. We see him like tattoo one of the names on, then he gets up and we see all the names on his chest. Yeah, like notches in his belt. Awesome. Yeah, we really, it's like Arrow says near the end of the episode, he's in it for himself. He's not trying to make the world a better place. And later we see his face, and I feel bad for, like, I have to worry this guy might, like, get typecast or something, or have gotten, but he does have the perfect face for this sort of thing, like um the cheekbones, I think it is, that just, yeah, he looks like someone who would be doing this kind of thing, you know. And I think that does pretty well get us to, yeah, clever thing with the, so yeah, the, the Russian mob. And yeah, I have done a little bit of research, by which I mean I watched Eastern Promises, and yeah, I think, yeah, if you show up, you show the tattoo, and that, I think they even got the tattoo right, if I recall from that movie, that is the captain tattoo, and like, he just did that, it's not a problem for Oliver to do that, and he can have it removed, laser removal of tattoos is a thing now. So yeah, very clever, and yeah, he must have done something to make it seem, because they checked him and he checked out. But yeah, the thing about, he walks in and says in Russian, I want to see, was Alexei Leonov. And then, oh, there's no one by that name in here. He says, not your garage, in the basement, Yeah, making clear, I know something that, I shouldn't. And they assume, like, oh, he's like the he's one of our enemies, and the guy comes over with a gun and he grabs it, and like, the sound design is fantastic. Like, he's like maybe breaking a bone or two in his hand, and takes apart the gun, and yeah, reveals, captain, and comes down. And the thing about, if you aren't really a captain of the, what was it, Bratva, uh we will, my mechanic will kill you and your family. And we see the mechanic, he's like, I'm going to enjoy it too. Do you have any, like, special how married are you to the open coffin thing? Because I'm not the biggest fan myself, but yeah, and very clever, this thing of, like, I mean, I don't know Floyd Lawton, no, but you can find out, and the thing about, oh, last time he stayed at the, and it's room 52, like new 52, very nice. Oh, by the way, if you haven't already, make sure you read the IMDb trivia for this episode. But the, yeah, he, yeah, him going there and attacking, and yeah, really, really cool. And yeah, the he gets the laptop, but it is damaged. And let's see, yeah, I think that brings us to, okay, I'm gonna see if I can get her name right. So, she should be somewhere around here, I think. Okay, I know I saw it right in here, certainly. Felicity Smoke. So yeah, yeah, great bit with her. The thing about, yeah, he goes to his own IT department and says, oh, this is my laptop, and she realizes it's not, and brings up Hamlet. Very cool. And yeah, it was very cute. The IMDb trivia notes, she had really great chemistry with Steven, the actor playing Ollie. So yeah, the thing about, oh, I know who you are. You're Mr. Queen. And, he's like, Mr. Queen was my great granddad. You can just call me Mr. G. And yeah, the thing about, you can come down here to listen to me babble, which is gonna end in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, she's great. And yeah, she notes, no, this is not Floyd Lawton's. No, it's what was it? So Patel, something Patel, I think. So okay. And yeah, the building, it's impossible for him to cover everywhere. It's sniper's wet dream. So yeah, he talks to the cop, and he does it in his way, of course. Like, I mean, email is a thing, dude, but okay, yeah, he's a big fan of grabbing people like that. So and yeah, explains it and hands the laptop so he can confirm. And yeah, they arrest Patel, and then yeah, great tension around, and yeah, it turns out it was Walter who was the target, which was that was so great when he was like, okay, so you're just doing this because you don't like the family, right? Okay, dude, if I was trying to take out everyone before the auction, I would have a ridiculously short amount of time left to do it. Don't you think I would have started sooner? I'm not in the auction, you know, people killing business. But if I were, and I think that pretty well gets us to yeah, really and yeah, the cop manages to spot it and does the Secret Service dive and gets them out of there. And then Floyd, like, holy crap, this petty, he starts just shooting random people. Like, yeah, it clearly is just personal. Like, he's basically taking out his frustration. And none of those are the target. Right? I think. Anyway, I think that. Oh, right. So yeah, I'm obviously going to talk about the confrontation between Arrow and Deadshot. I will briefly go into. Right. Yeah, the comics were way better than the first Suicide Squad movie. I do think the second one came in some ways, topped some of the comics. I like this Deadshot a lot better than the Will Smith one. I think that does bring us to the the thing with Max. It was so much great in that scene. Let's see, I already talked about most of the Thea stuff, but it was great. Right, the thing with Joanne saying, it's cute that you think you have a choice in the matter. No, we're going out. You're going to have fun. And yeah, Thea. There's that thing about sometimes you get the truth from drunk people. She tells him about Tommy and Lauren, and he takes it really well and seemingly new. And I think that does bring us to. But yeah, the thing about it's gonna be killer if Max realizes I'm here, sure. And the thing with Dig, he's like, can I come in because I'm not. My name's not on the list. Oh, right. Never seen this guy before in my life. Just yeah, but yeah, by the end, I feel like the relationship might change somewhat, and I'll talk about that. But I do gotta talk about yeah. Max has them grabbed and dragged in there, and the thing about so Max punches him and and I appreciate again there it's this thing of like his past sins catching up to him. He's not that guy anymore, but yeah, and that I think that is also an important that the show's making the distinction that the people he is going after are ones who have not changed for the better, whilst he himself has. So that's part of what's going on here. That's why, because you could say, well, who is he to judge? He's in some ways kind of the perfect person to judge because he wasn't quite as bad, at least not purposefully. But he was not the best person, and he changed for the better, and now he's going after and also I do think it is noteworthy. He tends to give them a chance. He doesn't just like go and kill them. Keeping in mind, he could, he could like force them at arrow point to transfer the money back they stole, and then kill them right after. There are other comic book characters who would do that, anti-heroes and such, but he does specifically, and some of them do, and the guy he got to confess ended up in jail for life, but he's not looking to kill. He'll only do it if there's simply no choice. And I think that does pretty well get us to the Max punches him and then sends the other guys to punch him, which is also one of those things of like, that makes us dislike him because, like, okay, it would be one thing if it was just like mano a mano, but no, he's like having him roughed up, you know. And then Tommy comes in, like, holy crap. Okay, in some ways, this guy really is, you know, at least trying to be a good friend. I also really appreciate him apologizing to Ollie, and also the thing with, you know, he's like, oh, that, you know, that waitress is cute, and then Dig's like, that's my sister-in-law, and I will never talk to her or look at her ever again. You know, he keeps getting himself into trouble by, you know, trying to, yeah, sexualize every single woman he comes across. But yeah, the thing about, oh right, and I also liked Lauren saying, you know, we don't need your uh, uh, permission, something like that, and I don't need your forgiveness, you know. And I think that does right. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah. Tommy actually, you know, runs in there and says, "Hey, you want to get to him? You're gonna go through me. They're gonna go through me, aren't they?" And I thought they did a really good job on, you know, like obviously Ollie would like to be able to fight them off, but you know yeah, they managed to overwhelm him. And I thought they did a really good job of, like, I never lost track of who was who or where. I mean, it helps that they don't move an awful lot. But yeah, it's they did a good job on that. Because, I mean, everyone in the room is wearing a suit, you know, so it could easily become very, yeah. And then Lauren shows up and, like, you know, beats, you know, yeah, takes out one of them and is like, oh, you know, what was it like? Are you gonna have them, you know, come after me now? You know, so it's, yeah, and you know, she mentions, you know, self-defense classes and the you know, yeah, her father was worried she would become a victim. Oh crap! Now nostalgia critic's gonna whine about how, oh, I guess if you don't get self-defense, you're a victim. No, it's saying that that's how those two characters perceive it. I can hardly believe I watched him for years and then eventually realized, oh wow, Doug Walker has little to no media literacy, at least in certain aspects. Holy crap. Uh, anyway, I'm gonna move on instead of dwelling on that. But yeah, you know, and yeah, I like, I think it was Tom, you know, yeah, Tommy's like, you know, don't mess with Merlin. I will send Archimedes to attack you. But yeah, the let's see. I thought that, yeah, and it also felt like, you know, a good character moment for Lauren, because, like, technically what she's doing isn't 100% legal. You know, it is technically vigilantism. You know, um, but so yeah, we're seeing, you know, maybe she doesn't 100% all the time agree with her dad on the idea that you can accomplish, you know, justice can always and only be achieved through legal means within the law. Then we have the yeah, you know, yeah. So Max bans them for life, which, like, I mean, okay, I don't think they were, like, chomping at the bit to return, but okay. And you know, Tommy's like, well, your club sucks anyway, way too much beating. And I think that does bring us to the last bit. Yeah, yeah. It was great when yeah, you know, Ollie had hid the suit nearby because he was always planning on going, you know, and he does the zip line arrow thing again. And yeah, fantastic fight. Some of the time there's like this metal thing between them, and there's some climbing on that. And so, that felt very like Chinese action inspired, like choreography. It I have to admit, I have not watched that many of their movies of the actual Chinese, you know, martial arts films and such. I've really liked what I have watched. Um, but yeah, one thing it reminded me of was the Musketeer, which, to be clear, did have a Chinese choreographer for the scenes, you know, and there, yeah. Perhaps especially the climax. There's a duel in the climax of that movie that this reminded me of. Then we have the but yeah, they talk, and we have the, we're not so different, you and I thing, and he does. I really enjoy when Ollie like barely has time to aim and still like just nails it. In episode 2 he does like, I guess I can't call a no look kill because I don't think he killed the guy, but no look bullseye. Nevertheless, that's another comic character who like never misses. I don't know. There was a while where like when they were making comic book characters, there was a fascination with the concept of someone who just has like perfect aim. There's a bunch of like heroes, anti-heroes, and villains who have that skill set. But yeah, Dig appears there, having the and I quite appreciated the bit where, you know, um, yeah, Dig is like, he thinking to protect Ollie because that's what he was hired to, and Ollie says no, them. Oh great, pronouns. Graham Linham's gonna. Well, he did already get fired and alienate his family, and now he's being like, there's legal problems. I guess he doesn't have that much further to fall, huh? Yeah. And he's probably never going to stop blaming trans people for his obsession with trans people, innocent trans people, some of whom he is now victimizing. So, yeah, some cishet white male bigots really need to like wake up and realize, dude, you're the problem here. There wasn't actually any issue here. Like, just, yeah, it takes a lot for, I suppose not every single woman, but a lot, perhaps the majority of women, for them to like remove themselves from their husband, especially if they have kids together. But yeah, I don't blame her. I think she made the right choice there, as much as it sucks for those kids. But he kind of, yeah, what were they gonna do? How much should they put up with of that crap? Anyway, but yeah, Dig was hit with one of the bullets, so Oliver, he can't let him die, obviously. So he brings him to the lair and heals him, and when Dig comes to, he's he's the hood and makeup is off, and yeah, and it was also like it was just a matter of time before Dig realized, and I guess now we're gonna see, because I don't right now know if he's gonna be 100% okay with it or not. So that'll be interesting. It's definitely gonna change the relationship between the two of them now that he fully knows. He had a feeling before, and there was definitely some frustration, and now either this is going to relieve the frustration or it's going to increase it, because technically now he knows. Before, part of it was he was frustrated. He was like, don't take me for a fool. This is, I know you're lying to me and I don't appreciate it. But yeah, on the one hand, maybe he'll be like, so this is what it was all about. But maybe on the other, he'll be like, you lied to me. We were supposed to be close, and you lied to me. And I think this is a good time to talk about. So I really appreciate that this is a show that realizes diversity is our strength. There are definitely, the show has its share of straight white cis men, but there are also a decent amount of like regular female characters. There are people of color, and I really feel like they're making an effort on this show to just have them there without necessarily making, so far they haven't really brought up issues of race very much. Because you could easily see, Oliver, who also, I just wanted to briefly note, this thing of like, oh, really hands-off approach to raising your rich kid, that is a major problem. There's a lot of rich people who have no idea how to set boundaries for their kids, so their kids become complete menaces. But yeah, like, there's some tension between Ollie and Walter. Doesn't seem to be racial. It seems to be the fact that, yeah, he feels like, how could you do this? You were my father's friend. You worked with my father, and now you're, married to my father's widow. It's more that, where there's a lot of people, yeah, like, the I suppose I'll just briefly note, there was fairly recently a passing of, I have to admit, I haven't read all of the comics, so the Hulk variant who goes by Hogan he's new to me. But yeah, apparently he had major issues with racism, and yeah, they could easily have gone that way. I don't want to be too disrespectful, because Hulk Hogan did just pass, and I do appreciate, not everybody who loved him were themselves racist. That's not how that, like, some people were just like, yeah, but, they, I think we all, at one point or another in our lives, find ourselves really caring about someone despite them having some issue such as bigotry that bothers us. I do sympathize with those who, yeah, care deeply about him, and yeah, I think that does cover it. Yeah. Also, right, there has been, the show has slightly explored sexism and misogyny, especially through Tommy and who Ollie used to be. But yeah, it doesn't try to make too big of a deal of, and it's of some of the characters not being white men. And it's one of those things, like, there's different schools of thought. I do think it makes a lot of sense for this show, at least so far, to have this, let's see, I believe it's called colorblind casting, where, like, yeah, so far, race doesn't really come up. You could also have seen, like, Floyd could easily have made a racist remark because he was there to kill Walter. When he's talking to Arrow, he could easily have said something, about, like, oh, he doesn't think that black people are, worth as much as white people, something like that. But yeah, so far I think it's really working for the show. I don't know if it'll at some point change, but so far it's working for the show, that it's not making a big deal out of it, because it is a fact. Like, there are studies that show that those who grow up, white kids who grow up around, kids of other ethnicities, they are less likely to be racist, because they kind of just see it as, well, whatever, like, I'm white, this person's black, the other person's East Asian. What's the big deal? We're all human beings, It's a bigger problem when, and to be clear, I'm not saying this is always something that can be solved. I'm saying this is something, I'm not saying that everyone can grow up in an ethnically diverse situation. Some places that simply isn't feasible. What I'm saying is, it's important, if you are raising a kid in another environment, in a more homogenous environment, to make sure that they, realize, hey, just because we are a certain way, we are a certain ethnicity, that doesn't mean that those who are of a different one are lesser than us. You know, that's, yeah, extremely important. And thankfully, you know, a lot of progressive parents are doing exactly that. Because it is, you know, there was a study, or possibly multiple studies, but there was a thing about that they showed white children. Let's see. I think it was it specifically? I feel like it was specifically, possibly among others, black faces. You know, and the babies reacted negatively to it, whereas they reacted neutrally or positively to white faces. And there was also something where like I forget exactly how, but there was definitely something where they like determined there are a number of like criminals who are, you know, white criminals who are racist. And I realized this, let's see, I think I'm referencing something that was like 15 years ago, but it bears repeating. There were, I forget the exact names, but there was this UK group of white racists, white supremacists, who tried to use that or those studies to like prove, see, it's natural for white people to be racist. And I forget exactly who, but there was a really excellent YouTuber who himself was white but not a racist, and I believe British. He pointed out, so what you're saying is, when you're being racist towards black people, you are being like a baby or a criminal, and that's supposed to make you look like the good guy here.